Unfortunately, there was a safety issue with having the gas cap located in the back of the car, because if you got rear-ended, well, the filler neck could break, which could spill gas everywhere, and that would spark a disaster, no pun intended. If there's just one thing that you learned from the Ideal Cars YouTube channel, it's that extinction is the rule, survival is the exception. This is definitely one of the most ideal videos that I've ever made. We're going to dig into the 7 features that are now extinct. I'm gonna give you a little background on each feature, why it became popular, and what replaced it. And if you're new here, my name is Brad Danger, and this is Ideal Cars, a place for next generation car enthusiasts just like you and me to hang out and learn about and enjoy ideal cars. And if you like this video, please support the channel by subscribing and get me one step closer to my ideal supercar, a McLaren 650S. So hit that subscribe button down here. One click could make all the difference. Also, if this video gets 14,713 likes, I will upload a second video I've already made on 7 more features that no longer exist. And a couple in that list are features that very few people ever knew they even existed. So without further ado, here's a list of 7 less than ideal features that no longer exist. Number 1. Pop-up headlights. The pop-up headlight kind of opens and closes like a drowsy eyelid. This feature was first introduced on the Cord 810 in 1936, and it was a staple on many models throughout the decades, including every single Corvette from 1963 to 2004, the Lamborghini Miura, Ferrari 308, Corolla AE86, Porsche 944, NA Miata, and the legendary Acura NSX. Not only did pop-up headlights give a sleek profile and better aerodynamics when folded down into the fender, they also remained popular because in the 70s, the headlight requirement was actually higher than what was optimum for a low-slung sports car. So, by having a rectifying headlights, automakers could get around this rule. However, hidden headlights have become a thing of the past, with the 2004 C5 Z06 Corvette, which is an ideal car by the way, being one of the last cars to feature a pop-up headlight. Up, down, up, down. I could do that all day. Due to the new safety regulations, specifically regarding pedestrian safety, manufacturers have moved on, and hidden headlamps are a thing of the past. Number 2, chrome bumpers. Check out any classic, and chrome bumpers have just as much visual expression as they do function. Believe it or not, back in the day, you wanted big chrome bumpers on your car because it enhanced the overall style with shapes and contours that integrated with the body. In fact, in 1973, there were no standards governing how effective a bumper actually had to be. Imagine that. And the 1973 model year bumpers were the first of the 5-mile-an-hour bumper, meaning it had to be strong enough to prevent damage to the headlights, taillights, and fuel system components when impacted at or below 5 miles an hour. Essentially, bumpers became more than just a fashion statement. Wow, what a concept. And by the 1990s, almost all the cars were fitted with smaller, lighter bumper bars, which are made of either aluminum or steel and sit behind the bumper covers. Chrome was once all the rage. But look at the new Mustang, Corvette, or Urus, and there's not a piece of chrome in sight. Then again, if there's a Mustang around, there might not be any crowds to see what I'm talking about. That's so 2016. Moving on. Number 3, carburetor. Pump twice and crank once. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Well, if you don't, it's the trick. It's the dance that you gotta do with the go pedal to fire up a cold-blooded carbureted engine. To some, there is a little bit of black magic sprinkled into this process, because if the engine doesn't fire right away, you could flood the engine by giving it too much gas. And believe me, it's easier to do than you'd expect. Ask me how I know. And the biggest problem is that once an engine is flooded, you gotta play the waiting game before you can give starting the car another try. Carburetors were phased out and replaced by fuel injection by the mid-1990s. So for example, that's why the BMW 325i has that I next to it. The I stands for fuel injection. Nowadays, with fuel injection, the computer calculates the perfect fuel to air mixture ratio every single time. I love it. Also, fuel injection just delivers better power, fuel economy, and lower emissions. That's pretty much everything my ex-girlfriend didn't have. And that's everything the modern driver could ask for, and why the carburetor will forever live in yesteryear. Number 4, Hidden gas fillers. All right, this is kind of cool. So some of you may know that in Oregon, you are not allowed to pump your own gas. So take like a 1956 Chevy Bel Air to a gas station there, and without your help, I'd bet money you're not getting any gas. Why? Because car designers have been pushing the envelope for decades, trying to streamline the exterior styling of cars. And one of the only things that throws off the perfect symmetry of a car aesthetically is the gas cap. You can't put a gas cap on both sides of the car. It would just look dumb. Personally, I can't stand cars that don't have dual exhaust either, but I'm just weird. So instead, what some thrifty designers decided to do was hide the gas cap altogether. And the most common place to hide it was to put it behind the license plate. But the 1956 Bel Air took hiding it to another level and put that gas cap behind the driver's side taillight. But unfortunately, there was a safety issue with having the gas cap located in the back of the car, because if you got rear-ended, well, the filler neck could break, which could spill gas everywhere, and that would spark a disaster, no pun intended. So if you wanna make some money and fill up your own tank, next time you see a 56 Bel Air at your local Ideal car show, tell your friends you'd bet them 20 bucks that they can't find the gas cap. Once they give up, ask the owner to remove the driver's side taillight, he'll know what you're talking about. Number 5, vinyl roofs. Every single generation seems to have their own idea of what luxury is. Nowadays, luxury is heated and cooled seats with massagers, autopilot, and self-parallel parking cars. But for a couple of decades, before any of these features I just mentioned were ever even an idea, luxury was defined by the vinyl you had on your roof. Yeah, vinyl roofs go all the way back to the 1920s, but were more of a necessity to keep the rain off the people inside the car. But then they somehow morphed into a fashion statement. And in the 1950s, Cadillac started offering the Eldorado Coupe as either a Seville, which had the hardtop, or the Biarritz, which was a convertible. And to make people think that you were driving the more expensive convertible version, Cadillac would let buyers use vinyl material called Vicodec on the roof of the hardtop. Yeah, just straight up trickery. In fact, some manufacturers went as far as putting button snaps on the bottom to make it look like you were just too lazy to put the top down. And then they came out with different styles of vinyl tops, like the full top that covered essentially the whole top, the halo, which is similar to the full, but the vinyl stopped short of the windows and windshield, the canopy, where vinyl was only applied to the front half or 2/3 of the roof, and the landau, which is essentially opposite of the canopy. But lucky for us, this fad phased out in the 1980s, because although I think it looked good on some cars in the 60s and 70s, by the 80s, they made the car resemble a balding middle-aged man, and that does not exude luxury. Number 6, powered antenna. Up and down and round and round. Almost every car nowadays has the radio receiver embedded in either the windshield or into a small shark fin shaped enclosure that sits on the roof. But before all this technology, cars received your favorite stations by a fascinating feature to watch, a power antenna. Yeah, for some reason, they are extremely satisfying to watch, aren't they? And they either had dash-mounted switches that you'd manually switch up and down, or it would automatically rectify when you turned on the radio. And it seriously is an event when a power antenna is activated.
Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions.
Probably because they have a high probability of failing, and so you're always curious if it's gonna get all the way up or if it's gonna get stuck halfway up. So be happy engineers have found better ways to play your favorite songs in your car, because due to half-raised power antennas, there used to be a lot more static on the radio. Number 7, foot-operated floor-mounted dimmer switch. Yo, so if I ask you how to activate the high beams, I bet you'd tell me that you pulled the signal stock towards you. Well, that wasn't always the case, because with the introduction of the 2-filament headlight bulb in 1925, yeah, believe it or not, that wasn't always around. There was a need to access both low and high beams. So for 2 years, that was accomplished using a switch on the steering column. But all of that changed on a cold winter's night in 1927, when a self-proclaimed genius moved the dimmer to the floorboard. And for the next 50 years, that's where the low and high beam switch stayed, until it moved back to, you guessed it, the steering column. Keeping your hands on the wheel was just as relevant 100 years ago as it is today. So by putting the dimmer switch on the floorboard area, it gave the driver just one less reason to take their hands off the wheel. And there were two main reasons why the floorboard dimmer was moved back to the stock in the 1970s. One was American manufacturers were trying to emulate the luxury European imports that had expensive, multifunctioning stocks that turned the high beams on and off. And that's what you're used to today. Secondly, with with the introduction of a lot more front-wheel drive platforms, the floorboard area was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and manufactured had less real estate to put a dimmer switch down there. Now, those were 7 features that no longer exist, but I know there are a bunch more that I didn't cover. Which one do you wish they'd bring back, even just for a day? Did I mention it, or is it something else like roll-up windows? Let me know down in the comments. Also, if you are a next generation car enthusiast just like me, be sure to hit that subscribe button right here, because some of our best videos aren't even out yet. Also, check out the Ideal Car Strategies, where I teach you how to properly buy your ideal car that may or may not have floor-mounted dimmer switches, with the goal to either drive it for free or make money enjoying it. Okay guys, thank you for watching. I really appreciate the support. And if you liked this video, you are going to love the video I made about 14 automakers and the 54 car companies that they own. So check it out over here. Or if you want to take a break, go watch what YouTube recommends you watch next. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and get me closer to that McLaren. But either way, you can't lose. And as always, keep living that ideal lifestyle.